Hello and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael from Monday, the 27th of February. I was reading not too long ago a sentence in a book that talked about the fact that we are not tourists in this life, but we are pilgrims. And I really liked that image of not being a tourist, but a pilgrim. I talked about on Friday about that there is time. And today that theme of there is time really, and also the season of Lent really lends itself, I think, into this sense that we are not tourists on this journey of life, but we are pilgrims. I used to live in Niagara Falls. And before I moved to Niagara Falls, I think I was in grade 7, beginning of grade 7. So I'd be 12 years old, I think, when we moved there. Um, and I remember before we got there, when I was younger than that, we had gone to Niagara Falls for holidays, and we did the whole tourist thing. We saw the falls, and we checked out the beautiful lights at night on the grounds of, I think it's called Victoria Park, that are on the Canadian side of the falls, and just really, did all the tourist stuff. Went to Marineland and saw the whales and all those things that you do when you go to Niagara Falls as a tourist. But then we moved back. We moved to Niagara Falls, and we lived there for 5 years. And the first 6 months we were there, when people would come to visit us, we'd go do the tourist thing, and we would see the sights, and we went back to Marineland again. It cost so much money. We only did that once we moved there, um, and we saw the world through the eyes of tourists. But after we'd been there for a little while, it became more of a recognition that where we were living was a wonder of the world. It was a beautiful place to live. It was a place to experience life. It was no longer a place where you would pop in and take lots of pictures, and nowadays you take selfies and then pop back out after doing all the things, the touristy things. And living in Niagara Falls became a whole different experience. It was the recognition of knowing that in your daily life, you could run into people who were from all over the world. Literally, anytime you went down to the falls, you could see people from any part of the world. It doesn't matter what time of the year it was, there were people visiting Niagara Falls. There were areas around the falls that were so beautiful, the vineyards, the great vineyards where they make incredible wines, and Niagara on the Lake, which is so different than Niagara Falls, and an intentional throwback to times gone by where the things are a little bit more slow paced, and there is attention to the historic beauty of the area. Fort Erie, which again, lots of history, but also that connection to Buffalo, New York, and just the drive along the Niagara River. We recognized quickly living there that we could live in that tourist mode, that tourist way of living, which is fast paced and instantaneous, that everything's a quick experience to take a picture of and move on from there. Or we could slow down and recognize that everything that was happening was an opportunity to breathe deeply, to notice the beauty of God's world, the power of God's creation, the eroding power of that water falling over the falls, going around the barge that was sitting in the river, recognizing the beauty and the power and the potential trauma that could be caused the rapids, the whirlpool. There were two ways of living. There was being a tourist, and then there was being a pilgrim, recognizing that every day in Niagara Falls was one step along a journey that led us through beauty and power and understanding of who God is and the power of God's hand in creation and in nature. And isn't that what our life is like? We can be tourists. We can take times. Sometimes we need to be. We can take times to be tourists, to drop in and see things and think, isn't this cool? And, do things like visit the cathedrals of the world, whether it's the cathedrals that are churches or the cathedrals that are forests and waterfalls and rainbows and deserts and beaches. We can take time, and we probably should take time to be tourists, to really appreciate in the moment those things, the incredible beauty. But we also need to recognize ourselves as pilgrims along the way, recognizing that we don't need to take in every moment with a selfie, but that we need to experience every moment as we consider and we think and we grow and we question and we wonder, and sometimes we backtrack and go back to those places where we have been and move forward to places that we've never been and maybe never even knew were ahead of us. That we're recognizing the many beautiful ways that we are called to be pilgrims along this journey of life. That we can do the fast-paced Niagara Falls thing of being a tourist, or we can slow down and meander the Niagara River all the way from Niagara Falls to Fort Erie and beyond, as we really understand how we are changing and growing because of the very things in God's world that we are experiencing from day to day. So as you go about your week, I encourage you to recognize those moments that are activities and a hotbed of flurry of activity that is a tourist moment for you, that you're consciously taking pictures of this moment to save forever. But also pay attention to the journey you're on, the pilgrimage that you are taking. That while it's good to be a tourist from time to time, in our lifetime, it's probably good also to pay attention to the pilgrimage you are on as well. So as you take a look at your days and figure out whether you're doing tourism today or pilgriming, be intentional about it and appreciate which one you're doing, and then take time to flip the switch and do the other. From tourist to pilgrim and back again. Which one do you feel your life is like? Have a great Monday. God bless you, and I will see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachael.